Okay, so it's time to get cracking on this here Tiger I, Tamiya Tiger I for tactical jackalopes. That 70s build. Got the instructions here. As I noted in my initial review, it's quite a spiffy little booklet, but I've already gone through all that. So the first steps, 1 through 5, is what I'm going to be working on this time, and that's the installation of the torsion bars into the lower hull, and then assembly of the wheels, drive sprockets, the rear shaft and adjuster for the idler wheel, and then that's pretty much the assembly. This here shows a diagram of how it should look and where each specific torsion bar goes in the hull. Now, one thing I noticed whenever I finally opened this up is that the material that the torsion bars are made out of it's not styrene like the rest of the plastic or the rest of the kit. It's kind of a flexible vinyl material, kind of like the poly caps that they supply for the wheels, and that is to allow, I'm assuming, for the torsion bar suspension to actually operate. You know, the swing arms can go up and down, you know, in the hull. They twist like they're supposed to, like on the real vehicle. And as I said in my initial review, I'd built this kit in the past, and the suspension was operable, which makes it nice if you want to do it on a diorama with uneven terrain. It'd be real easy to place, to position the wheels and the tracks in accordance with the contours of the base, the groundwork or whatever. But you know, whatever. If I ever knew it was made out of a different material than the regular styrene, I had forgotten. So anyway, that's the deal with those. So that is the first thing I'm going to work on, and that is cutting these from the sprue, getting them all nice and cleaned up and ready to go. Then after that, I will be taking the cutting the wheels off of the sprues, getting those cleaned up. Any seam marks, which there aren't very many, the little remainder of plastic once it's cut from the sprue, and there is some, let's see if you can see it here, there's some flash on the drive sprocket here, and as I mentioned in my review, there is some seam cleanup that needs to be done, taken care of. So I'm going to remove the flash and take care of the seams, you know, from the molding process, get those all cleaned up really well. So that is the first parts I'm going to do, is the cleanup of the torsion bars, and then cleanup of the wheel sprockets and idlers. And I will start moving through these steps. So I'm not going to do that on camera, just kind of letting you know what's going on. Probably show you a few of the parts as I take them off. And the nice thing about these torsion bars is you can cut them off and get them cleaned up and not have to worry about where they go, because there's one that's just labeled number 1. Then there's some that are labeled 2A and 2B back to here, and then from here it becomes 3A and 3B, and then number 4. So each torsion bar goes in a different position. So the nice thing is these torsion bars each have a little tab on them that are labeled. Like in this case, that is 2B. These are both 2B. You know, so once they're cut off, you still know which ones are which, because I think the angles are a little bit different on the portion that actually goes into the hull. So that's kind of nice. So those are all labeled, and they'll be easy to install in the appropriate spots. The wheels, they're labeled on the sprues, but the illustrations are very clear as to which wheels are which. There's basically looks like four different part numbers. You have H5, H6, H7, and H8, and they're quite distinct from each other, so I'll be able to cut those off, clean them up, and still, you know which ones are which. So that is the plan. So I'm going to get busy cutting these parts off, getting them cleaned up, and then we'll move on to some of the assembly. Okay, I've cut the first torsion bar off of here, and this is going to be a quick note for my beginning modeler friends, if I have any, and if you're watching. But this is one of the this is kind of a shortcut, I'm going to call it. And I mean, there's some modelers that would probably disagree with me, but I don't know about everybody, but sometimes modeling time can be precious, and sometimes an overkill of prep work and doing things that aren't really quite as necessary can cut into that modeling time. So an example is going to be these torsion bars. Now, the way these things are installed in the vehicle, I mean, first of all, obviously you need to cut them off. Do as neat a job as you can. Okay. And when you cut them off, there's going to be some imperfections. There's like little push knockout marks there, from the ejectors popping them out there. Now, normally you'd clean those up and smooth them out to where they were unrecognizable. Now, in a case like this, not really necessary, and the reason being is the way these mount into the hull. There's certain portions that you can't see. Okay, for example, this is 2B. 2B goes in. It's the first one on the right side of the tank. Okay, so it fits. I'm going to do this other one first. It's a little easier to get in. I don't want to have to worry about it. But it goes through right here. And then this little bar sticks into the hull. Okay, so bam. It goes in there like that. You press it down in there and it's in. So this part, which is this part, clean up. I mean, you can buzz it off, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Behind the torsion bar doesn't need to be perfect, because the way these things sit, the back of it is blocked by the hull, so the necessity is not there to have to clean it up in such a spiffy fashion. Same with the front. Now I'm going to clean those up, but you don't really see this part of the torsion bar where that seam line is. So just clean it up, pretty good, but you don't have to be meticulous in it. And just not having to be so meticulous will save you some time in the end result, but it won't detract from the appearance of the kit. Okay, so that's basically what it boils down to. If it's something that you're not going to see, then there's not a whole lot of point of making sure it looks perfect. Now, this part here, the actual shaft of the torsion bar, where the seam is, you might want to clean that up, depending on how well you're gonna have the inside of the tank visible. Because if you're gonna have where you can take it apart, like the instructions show, which I'll get to later on, it's made to come apart. Like the top of the hull can come off, so you can see inside all the work you did. If you plan on doing that, then you're going to want to be a lot more meticulous in cleaning up the inside of the tank, the torsion, the inside of the torsion bars, and so on and so forth. If you're just going to make it to where you can take the turret off and kind of see inside, it's not as big a deal. So you can look for these time savers that will help you you know, save a little bit of valuable time and resources if you are strapped for time and you don't get to put a whole, you know, instead of spending, you know, an hour, 2 hours cleaning these things up, when you can do a decent job cleaning them up in, say, 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, you've saved yourself some time. You can move on to the next part. So that's just a quick note on stuff like that and cleaning up parts. It falls into that category, and I think my first video about, you know, aimed at beginners is you want to go through everything and pre-plan what your end result is going to be. If your end result is going to be that you can take the turret off, take the top of the turret off, take the top of the hull off, then you're going to want to be real meticulous in the way you clean things up and the way you finish it. If you're just going to make it to where maybe you take the turret off so you can see inside of there and that you can look inside the tank and see most of the detail but not all of it, then you don't have to be quite as meticulous. You know, you may even just have it where you're just opening the hatches you can see in, you know, whatever. That's just a way to help save a little bit of time by cutting down on the amount of cleanup that's not actually necessary. Okay, so that's just a real quick note. I'll continue on with this and come back later. Okay, I've got the torsion bars all installed, and as I noted, each one of these torsion bars is labeled. And one thing I didn't realize, but not only is do the instructions show where each one goes, it's also molded on the bottom of the hull. So it's real easy to make sure you get them in the right place. And the reason you have to make sure you get them in the right place is the 5 in the back and 1 in the front are thicker than the rest of them. The torsion bar part itself is thicker, and I think that might have to do with like weight distribution to keep the model from sagging one way or the other because it is kind of a heavy model. And also the different lengths that the axles protrude in order to accommodate the interleaved multi-layered wheels. So, and excuse the growling, I've got a bit of a head cold, I think. But anyway, now here's something else I had to fix, and I just don't get why these old Tamiya kits are like this. But almost all their kits, for some reason, the sponson sides are open. This one's only open part of the way, and I can't figure out why it would be open part of the way. But looking at the instructions, nothing goes in there, and you know, it's not needed for any kind of access, but yet there's these weird, and they're not even perfectly rectangular shaped. They're kind of a weird shape. So what I did, and with the upper hull cover in place, you can see through the engine cover, the louvers on the engine deck. You can see if these aren't plugged up. So I just plugged them up with some sheet styrene. I cut them to the approximate size and glued them in. I'm gonna have to put a little more adhesive on this one here just to make sure it sticks really well. But I just cut them to size, stuck them in there, and ran some Tamiya extra thin in there. This is a case where the extra thin's pretty nice because it just kind of, through capillary action, bleeds all the way around the edges and holds it in place really well. And that way it'll block it off. So anyway, that part of the hull is done. There was some flash and uneven molding along the top edge of the hull here, so I got some sandpaper, just sanded that down so it's all nice and smooth now and flat. So the hull, that part of the instructions are done. Number 2 is the cutout and assembly of all of the wheels and the drive sprockets and idlers. I've already got one drive wheel done, but I'm gonna clip one of these off here so you can see what they look like before any kind of cleanup. This is the outside part and the inside part. Now, on this drive wheel here, whoops, let me throw down a piece of paper to give it a nice high contrast background. But as you can see here, there's some flash in between the teeth, you know, and then obviously the little nubs from cutting them off of the sprue. And then when you look at it head on like this, you can see the seam lines here, and they're pretty prominent. So for the flash, since this drive sprocket's 1/25 scale, so it's a little bit bigger, the flash, I actually used my sprue cutter here to cut alongside the teeth to get the majority of it off, like that, and then use my X-Acto knife to cut the rest out. That way it gets the majority of it out. Then using this little super skinny sanding stick that I got from Hobby Lobby, I used the coarse side and sanded down the inside. Then I used my knife and I'd cut a little bit in like that after this middle part was sanded down, kind of cut in a little bit and then scraped up a couple of times to get the teeth smooth on the inner and on either side, the front and the back, I guess you'd call it, of the tooth. Then once that was done, I took my large sanding stick and just sanded the ends of the teeth. And in doing all of that and gluing the two halves together, I ended up with this. Now I need to do a little bit more fine cleanup on here using the soft or the finer grit side, but it's kind of nice because you can do them both sides at the same time after it's glued together. And this is narrow enough that it fits in between there, so it does a really nice job getting that all nice and smoothed out in there. So that will take care of that. Then I'll move on to the wheels. I'll cut all these off and get those sanded down and smooth, and then I can start putting all of them together. So that's it for now. I'll be back in a little bit to show the progress I've got so far. And here is everything after the completion of the first page of instructions. First page was install the torsion bars, which is done, and everything's all set. As you can see, torsion bars work, so you got some springy suspension going on. So those are all installed. The tensioning device for the axle for the idlers is installed. I won't be messing around with that until later. And I filled in these holes in the sponson sides. Why those were ever there is beyond me, because when the upper hull is in place, you can see through the engine louvers, you can see these openings. So I filled them in, and that way when everything gets painted, it'll all be dark and you won't be able to see it, so that won't be a distraction. So that's all done. As far as the hull goes, there was a little bit of unevenness on the upper portions of the hull sides, so I just laid that down on some sandpaper, smoothed that out. So that's done. Then I put together, or I cut off and cleaned all of the wheels, the sprockets, and the idlers. Everything went together really well. The idlers were the cleanest parts of all of them. All I had to do was just run them over some sandpaper real quick, just to knock a little lip along the inside edge of the side of the idler there. Took me, just a couple minutes. It was really easily fixed. The sprockets, they were pretty dirty. Had to clean the seam lines out. Fortunately, I have these really skinny sanding sticks, so they just fit right across, and sanded that down really well. And then I used a a new X-Acto blade and cleaned up the inside parts of the teeth, and then hit along the top with the sanding stick. So these are ready to go. And then the wheels, these were the pain part. There was quite a bit of seam line business going on these things, and it took me a couple hours to sand them all down to get them smooth and then touch up the edges. But you know, in the end I got them done. And you know, a quick note on I'd read a review, and somebody was, you know, one of the detractors from this kit was saying that, you know, it was lame in the fact that it didn't have enough road wheels, and he remarked that where the pair of road wheels were, it was one thick wheel. Now that is true with the 1/35th scale version of the old, I guess it was probably the original Tamiya Tiger tank. They did do that. They molded one big wheel and then a skinny wheel, which was supposed to simulate the double stacked wheels. But obviously that's not the case with the 1/25th scale version. So that's just a quick note. You know, there are a lot of problems with this kit, but that's not one of them. So anyway, this part is done. Next up will be page 7 on the instructions, which involves installing the wheels and running gear, and then beginning on the interior portions, the lower hull. So that's coming up next, but that's it for this particular installation of plastic models by a regular dude. I'll get this posted up, and then I'll begin work on the next page of instructions. So until then, see you guys later.